Okay, y'all, Denmark is in the middle of the fiercest political drama since the salted licorice embargo of 1892. And we're here for it. So far, it's been more dramatic than any Hans Christian Andersen fairy tale, and it also has no clear winners at this point. But in today's video, we're going to try to figure out what exactly is happening with Great Prayer Day before this little mermaid turns into sea foam and floats away forever.
Yet those stories in actuality are nowhere near as uplifting as the Disney versions, are they?
No.
Anyways, I think we all need a little bit of background on Great Prayer Day since a lot of us probably aren't too familiar with it. Let's go. So, Great Prayer Day is a Danish holiday that's observed on the fourth Friday after Easter, and this is how it's been since 1686. That's the year when Denmark's King Christian V consolidated several minor holidays into one day of prayer.
Wait a minute. Rasmus, you're not working this Wednesday? And Lars, you're not working this Friday? And nobody is working next Tuesday? We must have a better way to do this. I have an idea.
Basically, after the Reformation, the holiday was introduced as a more efficient way of celebrating the feasts of the minor saints and other springtime religious observances. Nordic efficiency and Danish innovation, definitely at their finest. So, let's flash forward 336 and a half years to 2023.
Whoa! Whoa! Wow, that was intense. Why didn't you just snap your fingers again?
You know, it's easier to go back in time than it is to go forward in time. Sorry.
That's deep. Anyway, where do we begin with the discussion about the modern Great Prayer Day?
Well, so now 3 centuries later, and we find ourselves having a queen instead of a king. But she isn't really involved with the government anymore because Denmark is now a constitutional monarchy.
Oh, cute. So can I keep this?
Yes, of course. But you should also have to explain that Denmark now has a government and it's headed by a prime minister named Mette Frederiksen. This current government was formed in December of 2022 after a recent election, and one of its first policy proposals was to increase Denmark's defense spending. To find the money for this, though, they proposed to abolish Great Prayer Day.
Ah, and how did that go over?
Well, about as well as the famed salted licorice embargo of 1892. But more recently, Mette Frederiksen was actually politically weakened by another scandal. Do we have time to get into that?
I don't think so.
Well, it doesn't matter anyway because she surprised everyone during the last election and actually grew her party's numbers in parliament. And in doing so, she broke with tradition and formed a government over the center. Everything seemed to be going super well for her.
And then what? She was like, hold my beer and propose scrapping Great Prayer Day?
Precis. You could say she stepped in the spinach for this one. People didn't like it anyways. I mean, as an outcome, she actually managed to unite Denmark's far left and far right parties while upsetting unions and religious leaders.
And one of the most vicious and powerful groups in the Danish realm, a throng of bloodthirsty beasts that haunt my dreams and strike fear in the heart of the masses.
Them?
13-year-olds planning their confirmation parties.
Oh, fully. So teenagers, unions, priests, everyone's up in arms. And the real tea is how everyone's responding. Why don't we start with the political fallout?
Oh, I can start with this one. So while we were traveling through time, I got a little nostalgic for Twitter. You know, it hasn't been cool since 2012. But while I was there, I saw that the leader of Denmark's far-right party, New Party, I won't say her name because she's basically like Voldemort, but she threatened to use a clause in the Danish constitution to force a referendum over this whole issue of Great Prayer Day being abolished. She also tweeted that the government wants to abolish Great Prayer Day for many of us, which is for Danes associated with important traditions. She also said that we should be deported because we're too multicultural.
Well, jokes aside, that's one of the biggest issues for the Danes that we've talked to about this, not the deportation part. But on this channel, we've stated many times that Danish culture is very much rooted in tradition. And even though Denmark is now a rather secular country, Great Prayer Day has become a tradition. And you also mentioned teenagers celebrating their confirmation. This is another time-honored tradition that probably isn't politically savvy to try to take away.
Yeah, I can see that for sure. And while I'm still waiting for Elon Musk to chime in on this important issue, the far-left leader of Enhedslisten was in lockstep with her far-right counterpart for probably the first time ever. And they're both vehemently opposed to this move. In fact, the leader of Enhedslisten said, the normal hardworking Danes must pay with their well-earned holiday so that those who have the most can get top tax bracket cuts and company tax cuts.
This response makes sense from her party, and in a way, the left and right are coming from different sides to end up saying the same thing. Keep Great Prayer Day, whether it's to preserve Danish traditions or workers' well-earned holiday time.
Yeah, I personally like both of these things.
Aw, such a centrist.
Yes, I sure am. I'm a people pleaser, but if I may continue.
Please.
Religious leaders also weighed in, and it makes sense that they would. It's called Great Prayer Day. The Danish Association of Priests released a statement that said by abolishing the holiday, the new government is neglecting the needs of the Church of Denmark and young people who attend their confirmation ceremonies around the time of Great Prayer Day. So once again, don't mess with Danish teenagers. They're scary.
Well, I mean, they'll drink you under the table, but that party element is also a factor. A lot of Danes plan confirmation parties years in advance. I mean, you can see it coming. But the real turd in the swimming pool here is that no one can really clearly explain how cutting Great Prayer Day will even save money. Here's what I mean. The public sector of Denmark is huge, right? I mean, many people either work for the government or they're a contracted employee of Denmark's robust social welfare system.
Yeah, it's like a Fox News nightmare. I actually read, though, that if all public sector employees worked one extra day, it would cost Denmark 900 million kroner, or about 131 million US dollars.
Ah, precise. So the new government is banking on the private sector businesses to generate enough additional tax revenue to offset the cost of public employee wages and to bring in the money needed to pad the defense budget. But it took them a while to offer up a projection for this revenue model, and once they did, the numbers were highly disputed by Danish economists.
Plus, people could just take that Friday off anyway. I mean, a 3-day weekend in the springtime that people are already used to, I would just burn that day of holiday.
Precise. I mean, take the kids to Legoland anyways. But the government's math is based on the fact that an additional day of work by the entire public sector would mean fewer public sector employees are actually needed throughout the entire year. Their idea is the wages saved by scrapping Great Prayer Day could actually provide the same services, but with fewer total people on Denmark's payroll. The government projected a 9.4 billion krone increase in GDP if the public holiday was abolished and everybody in the country works an extra day. To prove the point, they drew up a formal bill in Parliament saying they would eliminate 2,700 public sector jobs, but still claimed that by doing this, the net addition from the private sector would net out 8,500 additional jobs.
So 8,500 jobs? Okay, the math is starting to math, if you believe the math and trust your mathias mathers in Parliament. But even with Denmark's strong trust in government, there's one more group that I don't see taking this at all very well, and it rhymes with labor schmunions.
Aw, you're such a poet, and honestly, precise. The unions are saltier than
the salted licorice embargo of 1892.
The Confederation for Trade Unions in Denmark, which is FHO. FHO has attacked the move in scathing comments. They call it a unilateral attack on Denmark's labor model, and they point out that Denmark has actually been fighting against EU interference in the negotiated labor contracts that the majority of Danes work under, like the minimum wage. And now they're only turning around to take a stab at it to get a quick fix for some proposed government spending model.
Yeah, I read those comments, and they're brutal. Talk about Danish directness. It's a little scary to read. It also seems like they're keeping their powder dry for the moment, but they hold a lot of power in Denmark, and they could really jeopardize future negotiations and the collective bargaining agreements that most of Denmark's private sector operate under. They're also negotiating a pay increase right now so that they can keep up with inflation, so they're digging their heels in on this one especially.
Precise. But so far, their words have been powerful enough. FHO has been calling for a referendum as well, and they actually held talks with the government. It seems to all be having some impact because now the 9 parties in government that are not part of the governing majority refuse to comply with the government demand that they vote for the bill as part of an upcoming defense agreement. This is significant because traditionally national defense policy has consensus across all of Parliament, and it's even more extraordinary now because it's united Denmark's left and right. Remember, the governing parties right now are Denmark's political center. The old red bloc, blue bloc isn't the same as it was before.
Yeah, this really shows you just how unpopular of an idea it is to abolish Great Prayer Day while tying it to defense spending. Things are getting pretty dramatic, so I think I want to make some popcorn real quick.
So this is when it gets really juicy. I mean, you definitely don't expect these two to be working together.
Who, Taylor and Kanye?
No. the 9 Danish political parties that are the united opposition that actually come from opposite ends of the political spectrum. I mean, they actually rolled up their sleeves and united to put forth an alternative to the Great Prayer Day defense spending proposal from the government.
Yeah, I actually just watched a YouTube short on this. I probably could have saved us some time, but they created an alternative proposal to find a 3 billion kroner, 1.25 billion from the public investment budget, 1 billion from the winter assistance program, which was overfinanced because it wasn't that cold this winter, thanks climate change, and 750,000 kroner, which was savings from business support spending. So we didn't necessarily have to time travel. I could have just told you this.
Whoa. Slap the horse here. Nothing is really done yet. I mean, they just got the bill tabled and negotiations will obviously continue. For now, our spring holidays are safe for the foreseeable future, but it's already been a bit of a crazy start for the new government. And personally, I always sense some owls in the bog here. I mean, the number of public holidays changes each year depending on whether Christmas, New Year's, and Constitution Day land on a weekend or a weekday. Last year, all 3 of them were on weekends. So we actually have a natural experiment to see if the economy is actually bigger when there are fewer public holidays worked. Anyways, to me, it's all just an accounting trick. And the government, they got caught with their beard in the post box, as you say.
Yeah, the Danish government seems to be able to find money for a lot of things, which is personally what I question. Like, why is something as important as defense spending, while there's literally a hot war in Europe right now, by the way, any different than some of the special interest money that seems to be found every time the government wants to spend a little bit of money here, a little bit of money here on a different project? It just seemed a little too cute, and they're digging up potatoes at the expense of my favorite public holiday. Let us know what you think about Great Prayer Day in the comments, and if you really want to understand how the Danish government got elected in the first place and how the Danish elections compare to American elections, you'll have to watch this video right here. And enjoy your possibly last Great Prayer Day in May, everybody. Thanks for watching.
Hi.